I'm Ray.
I'm Candace.
Welcome to Unpacking Coffee this week.
George Howell Coffee from Massachusetts, Greater Boston.
Said George Howell knows his coffee. George Howell, he loves his coffee. George Howell, George Howell, George Howell. I said.
So, Ray.
Yeah.
George Howell Coffee was founded in 2004 by Lori and, guess, George Howell. But we're not even going to talk about that now. Let's talk about George Howell Coffee.
So we drove up to Seattle to speak with George Howell, the CEO, and Jenny Howell, Director of Coffee Sourcing and Development.
I'm a coffee guy who loves coffee and the exploration of it.
Right.
I'm never happy with where I am today. I'm George Howell, and I own the George Howell Coffee Company in Greater Boston. I've been around for 40 plus years. And I was exhibiting Indian art from Mexico, Huichol Indian art, for a number of years in the early 70s. Moved to Boston, and the coffee's dreadful. I had to exhibit the art that I was exhibiting, which was very difficult. What better than to have a cafe, roast your coffee, and put the art on the walls? The mistakes we made, I remember I almost burned all the hair on my head off the first day we roasted. So we had French press made to order, day one.
In the
as
70s.
well. In the 70s. And we became an overnight sensation.
So one of the things, I always loved doing was traveling.
Yeah.
And that definitely started off with my dad. Instead of going to Disneyland, we were going to Costa Rica, but we'd be in the fields picking coffee and meeting the farmers, and so it was kind of in my blood. I'm Jenny Howell. I'm the Director of Coffee Sourcing at George Howell Coffee in Boston, Mass. I really maintain a lot of relationships. I maintain relationships with the farmers that we work with, our exporters and importers that we work with. I came home, was staying in one of their guest rooms, and that was the time when he couldn't be in the coffee business right after he'd sold to Starbucks. And he was still receiving all this green coffee, and I'd wake up in the morning and there'd just be like a spread of coffees to cup. And then that's what I did. It's
always, how can I do it better? What can I find that's new? So a few years after selling it, I was able to get a job as a consultant in Brazil, to find a way where farmers could actually produce a better quality product, but sell it for higher prices.
At the beginning of George Howell Coffee, back in the early 2000s, when he wanted to, highlight the farmer, and not single origin, but single estate, where you're not blending, different farms together, but you're really, focusing on the terroir in this one specific area, on this one specific, hilltop.
So I wanted to get in front and understand what it's like to market this new concept.
Yeah.
Single farm coffees, no longer blends, away from blends, right? Great coffee, single farm, just like in a wine.
Yeah.
To differentiate one farmer from another, you really have to take one farmer and their one product and be able to taste the difference between their coffee and another farmer's coffee.
Yeah.
Balance, sweetness, and acidity. Definitely complexity. There's always that, what makes a coffee, one of the great coffees is that last piece is complexity.
A complex coffee is one that is changing as you drink it. And a great cup is always sweet from start to finish, but has these transparencies that you can taste, one, then another, then another. Drinking a cup of coffee is a drip coffee is like drinking a glass of wine. It's a process. It's a 20, 30-minute period of time that you're drinking. And that cup of coffee, very much like wine, is opening over that 20 minutes.
We're looking to work with small, undiscovered farmers or discovered farmers, whatever is going to be a great cup of coffee. Our Mamudo, our Kenya Mamudo, this year is really amazing. It's been, a relationship we've had since 2006. We're working with Walter, the owner, every year, visiting twice a year and, exchanging knowledge and, trying to give them, any kind of tools that they need to produce better coffee. We kind of see the future of some of our cafes as, like a fine wine store where you can pick a vintage out from any different year.
But people think we mean aged, and we don't. So you have coffees coming from the northern hemisphere and those coming from the southern hemisphere. And so it's twice a year that you really get these coffees. But every coffee starts to age immediately. It's already aging as it gets to you. Some change very quickly. It's a little bit like having a beautiful color photograph in a sunlit room. A year later, it's going towards sepia. That was my problem. It may be seasonal in May, but is it really seasonal in July and I still have it? Yeah. And what about August? I can say it's seasonal, but it may already be dreadful. So we started freezing coffee. And then we just take out what we need for a few weeks and we roast that. And I'm able to serve it at any time of the year I want. Then there are those where Jenny and I and others feel, wow, this coffee, I don't know when we're going to get a crop like this again. So we hold back several hundred pounds, right? And hopefully 1,000 more, right? As we get bigger and we can get more. And we might hold it for several years. And what's more fun than on a special Christmas or New Year's or whatever to say, hey, let's bring some in, unfreeze it, roast it, and voila.
You know what, Candace? I think we should do another show in 2 weeks, profiling George Howell.
I mean, we've never done anything like that before. Can we just make another show?
Yeah, come back in 2 weeks. Or you know what? If 2 weeks have passed, just immediately go and watch the new show.
Okay.
So this episode is coming out right before the SCA event in Seattle. And right now you can catch George Howell's coffee and maybe the man himself at the Marzocco Café.
Yeah.
High five! What's your favorite memory of going to work with your dad?
Wow. That would have to be when I went to Costa Rica when I was 10 years old with him. And when he wasn't working, we would be swimming in the ocean, riding waves. Have you ever ridden a wave? Where you start swimming and then the wave picks you up? It's really fun. You've got to try it. So yeah, he taught me how to do that. And yeah, it's one of my favorite things still to do today.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.